Welcome, this is Ed Pozzuoli from Tripp Scott, and with me today we are honored to have the three-time senator from Connecticut, former vice presidential candidate and statesman, Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator?
Ed, great to be with you. Thank you for your kind words.
Oh boy, I tell you what, a true statesman in every sense of the word, so thank you. Before we get to some of the school choice questions,
Sure.
Yesterday the Obama administration reached a deal, or a tentative deal, with Iran. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm disappointed with the deal. In fact, I'm so disappointed, I'm opposed to it. Yesterday I had the honor to testify before the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'd had some time to go over the agreement, and I urged the members of Congress to reject it. I think it's it has too much risk for America, too much undeserved reward for Iran. It's a bad deal, not the good deal that a lot of us wanted when these negotiations started. I mean, basically, to say it quickly, the whole goal at the outset was an exchange. Iran would stop building nuclear weapons, and the rest of the world, including us, would stop the economic sanctions which are hurting them. What we got now is a temporary freeze, if they keep it, on their nuclear weapons program, and then they bust out and become nuclear, and we pretty much in the next 6 months, maybe a year, lift the sanctions on them, and they're free to get a lot of money, billions, probably spend a lot of it to support terrorists, as they've always done.
But there's going to be a lot of consternation around it going through the Congress for approval.
Right.
How can we position this in a better way that gives us more protection of Iran becoming a nuclear country?
It's a really good question, because a lot of the people who will be urging members of Congress to accept this agreement, even though it's not, they will say perfect, will say, what's the alternative? The alternative is war. That's not true. That's a false argument. The alternative is that the administration and the other countries who are negotiating with Iran go back to the table and basically say to the Islamic Republic of Iran, we couldn't sell this to the United States Congress. You've got to do better than you've done so far. And the truth is, this agreement and its most important part, which is inspections, because nobody, whether they're for or against the agreement, says that we can trust Iran. They haven't earned our trust. So the big part of the agreement is, what do you do to prove that they're keeping their word? And the inspections verification part is so full of holes that you could drive a nuclear weapon through it, unfortunately.
So the old trust but verified policy should be applied here, but it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, I mean, it probably, I'd say in this case, it's mistrust, and you got to verify, and there's not enough verification in this agreement.
Senator, let me switch gears,
Okay.
Because we're here talking about school choice today, and you're a vocal supporter of school choice charters and whatnot. How did you come to that conclusion that school choice was a necessary element in our country?
It's a good question, Ed, and I could probably talk for about an hour about it, but let me just start by saying I grew up in a family. My grandparents were all immigrants. My mom and dad didn't have the opportunity to go to college. We were raised, one, to believe in the American dream, work hard, play by the rules. You can go as far as possible in this country, great country. Second, the way to do that was a good education, and through the public schools, in my case in Connecticut. I got a great education in the public schools. They made everything I've done since then, going to Yale, law school, all the things I've done in public service possible. Wouldn't have been possible. So I came out, got into politics, did what was natural, and when I got to be a state senator, worked really hard to get more money for the public schools. I believe in the public schools, but as time went on, I saw pretty clearly that a lot of America's children, poor, minority, the system was not working for them the way it was for me. They needed something extra. And part of what they needed was choice for their parents. Why compel a parent in America, because they don't have the money, to watch their children suffer from a bad education that'll make it impossible for them to live out the American dream? And that's how I got involved in the school choice movement. To me, the school choice movement is really like a civil rights movement. And it's not partisan. I mean, for too long, and still in some ways today, a lot of Democrats oppose this. That's wrong. This is as nonpartisan and American as the Declaration of Independence.
What are some of the, obviously education is the great equalizer in the pursuit
Right.
of happiness, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so but what, when you say school choice, what are we talking about for the folks watching?
Right. So at the beginning, early 90s, after I was privileged to be elected to the U.S. Senate, I got really interested in the charter school movement, just starting around the country. I went and had a conversation with a then Senator Dave Durenberger, who was a Republican senator from Minnesota. And
right,
we got,
they led it, right.
and that was where the first charter schools began. And we got together and put in the first legislation, eventually adopted, which created federal support for charter schools around America. Charter schools within the public school system. A system gives a charter to somebody, and they keep that charter to educate the kids as long as the kids are doing well. You don't just, in other words, argue about how much money you're putting into the education system. You're arguing and looking at what comes out. What do our children get for this? And then as time went on in the 90s, I was drawn into looking at some school choice programs, particularly in faith-based programs. I always joke that people assume because I'm Jewish that this is because people who are Orthodox Jews and believe in day schools got me involved. It was actually Roman Catholics.
It was the Roman Catholic Church, right.
And first it was Bishop Edward Egan of Bridgeport, Connecticut, later to become the Cardinal Archbishop in New York, and he was a great believer. I visited the Bridgeport parochial schools with him. You know what, 95% African American, Hispanic American, most of the kids not Catholic, but a real sense of mission, doing beautifully. And then Cardinal McCarrick in Washington got me involved in the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program. And here's the number that jumps out at me. In America today, in most of our big cities, less than half of the students graduate from high school. In the DC School Choice Program, which has been going on for some years now, by lottery, you don't. This is not a merit selection.
Right.
It's income-based.
Random.
Random. 90% of the students who come out of that program go to college. So on the one hand, less than half of the kids graduate high school in most cities, and in this school choice program, 90% go to college.
Man, it's great results.
Great results.
Great results. How do we get more Democrats to support this issue?
Well, the good news is, although it's not as good as it should be, there are many more Democrats now supporting school choice programs, particularly at the state level.
Right.
Here in Florida, you've had good support from Democrats in the state assembly, and increasingly, I think African American, Hispanic American elected officials are getting it because they're hearing from their constituents that they want the opportunity, choice, to take their kids out of a bad public school and put them into a better private or faith-based school. One of the big breakthroughs lately is Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York.
I saw that.
Now supporting a series of tax credit incentives to school choice programs. At the federal level, not as good as it should be. Senator Dianne Feinstein has been really a stalwart from California. Senator Cory Booker, new senator relatively from New Jersey, seems to be supportive.
And Mayor Emanuel in
Rahm
Chicago.
Emanuel.
I mean, let's be,
absolutely.
really big supporter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, this is where Democrats ought to be. The terms liberal or conservative are overused, but by any definition of liberal in the modern sense that I know, it is school choice programs, because you're trying to help poor children go to a good school, be able to develop their God-given talents, and then go out into
greater
society.
Opportunity for them.
Absolutely.
Senator, I wanted to thank you. I mean, honestly, from all of us at Tripp Scott, we do appreciate your statesmanship and your role continuing in public affairs, particularly in school choice. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.